Welcome to Bite-Sized Learning. Lisa and I have been engaging in reading Peter Liljedahl's Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics. As we've read his work, we have realized that his work applies to all curricular areas. This is our second video in a series exploring his 14 practices. You can access the previous videos on our website.
Peter Liljedahl's book, Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics, has shifted the thinking of many educators in mathematics and beyond around how institutional norms in education have encouraged the creation of studenting behaviors that often interfere with student thinking and learning. These norms unintentionally encourage slacking, stalling, faking, and mimicking behaviors that don't lead to the deep learning we'd hope and sometimes assume students are leaving our classes with. Over 15 years of research, Liljedahl identified 14 factors where he, in essence, turned institutional norms on their head to see how student thinking would be impacted. And what he found was remarkable. In each and every case, this contrarian approach produced practices that generated more thinking than the normative baseline data. He ultimately refined his research into what he calls optimal practices that promote thinking. And those are what Jill and I will explore over this series of bite-sized learning videos. Today, we will be exploring what Peter Liljedahl's research tells us about forming groups. When teachers strategically create homogeneous or heterogeneous groups in the classroom, it's typically for the purpose of a specific educational or social goal. When students are permitted to create their own groups, 95% of the time, their choices are influenced by who they want to socialize with. The reality is that whether strategically grouped by the teachers or self-selected, 80% of students entered into the group feeling like they were going to be a follower rather than a leader, to be a follower rather than a thinker. The contrarian approach that Liljedahl landed on was to make student groupings visibly random. It wasn't enough to tell the students that the grouping was random. They needed to be visibly random for the students to believe and perceive the randomness. When the nexus of control for determining groups was removed from both the teacher and the students entered groups unsure of what their role would be. This provided the space for different students to think and share ideas. The groups also need to be frequently randomized at approximately every hour. Longer than this, and the roles in the groups begin to settle into active and passive states. From grade 3 and up, Liljedahl found that the optimal group size is 3 students. A group of 3 was found to have the perfect balance of redundancy, or things in common among group members, and diversity, things that are not shared among the group members. This combination optimized the group's ability to be both collaborative and generative. In addition to encouraging more thinking behaviors, Liljedahl found that implementing frequent, visibly random groups had several other benefits. These include an increased willingness to collaborate, the elimination of social barriers, increased knowledge mobility among students, and an increased enthusiasm for learning, which included decreased student absences and lateness, as well as reduced social stress. So to summarize this optimal practice for promoting thinking, Liljedahl suggests frequently forming visibly random groups in class. They should ideally be groups of 3 from grades 3 and up. The form of randomization should tell students both who they are working with and where they should work in the room. And to keep everyone accountable, teachers will want to find a way to randomize that allows them to know which group students were assigned to. Now Jill is going to share some examples.
Working in groups is a staple in many classrooms. The following examples that I'll share apply Liljedahl's concept of collaborative random groups. First, we need to have an easy-to-use tool to create visibly random groups. Many teachers use websites such as Flippity that randomize the students. Others have used physical items such as playing cards, popsicle sticks, or foam shapes. Each of these allows for groups to be random and for students to know where to go. Remember, Liliadahl tells us groups of 3 are ideal. Collaborative and random groups work in conjunction with Liliadahl's other strategy. They pair nicely with thinking tasks and non-curricular tasks. They could also be used for community building because these groups allow for students to interact with new people, not just who they self-select to work with. In English, visibly random groups work well for peer editing, small group discussion, or grammar activities. This strategy will help reduce social barriers and social stress while increasing a willingness to collaborate. In science, students can work together to complete check your understanding questions or to complete a lab or an inquiry. By using the visibly random groups for these experiences, students will take on new roles and challenges. They will not assume they have a specific role, such as leader. This will in turn increase the mobilization of knowledge. In French, similar to English, visibly random groups will increase a willingness to collaborate and reduce social stress. This can be used for conversation practice, grammar activities, and check your understanding questions. No matter the subject area, we can all form visibly random groups in order to build collaboration skills, allow for more opportunities for deep thinking, to mobilize knowledge, and to reduce social barriers. If you give this a try in your classroom, please let us know. Thank you for watching. Next week, we will explore where students work in a thinking classroom.